Hi there, I'm April from The Moon is My Calendar, and I wanted to make this short video about blue moons, what they are, and connecting in with the mystery of lunar time, as well as the rhythm and practicality. So, there's lunar time and there's solar time. This is our starting place for understanding blue moons. Solar time, there's a certain amount of days it takes for the Earth to go around the sun. Lunar time, there's a certain amount of days that it takes for the moon to go around the Earth. These cycles are happening simultaneously, and they're happening with their own rhythm and timing. So I'm going to show a little a little visual, if you can see this, that I created for myself when I was just trying to understand this discrepancy. So solar time, 365 days, and we know that it's even a little more than that, which causes an extra day to need to be added in for leap year. That's very similar to the moon and lunar cycles, that there's an extra lunar cycle that is within a solar year every 2.5 or so years. The lunar cycle then, each moon cycle is 29.5 days, not 28, 29.5 days. And so 12 of those cycles then add up to 354, which has a discrepancy of 11 days. So a solar year, the time it takes for the Earth to go around the sun, is 11 days longer than it takes the moon to go around the Earth 12 times. So after about 2.5 years, then the moon will go around, that the moon cycles, there's 13 of them that will fit into a solar year. Blue moons also highlight the fact that the Gregorian calendar does not reference natural cycles. So the Gregorian calendar starts January 1st, no matter when the new moon, the full moon, any moon is. So there's this box. And what happens with the box is that if the full moon, say, is January 1st, the next full moon will be within that same box because the lunar cycle is only 29.5 days. Does that make sense? So if a full moon is right near the first or second day of the month, the second full moon will be right at the end of the month. Now this happened, this is the New Moon Calendar and Journal for 2018, which actually has a blue moon cyanotype by Jocelyn Matthews for the cover. This year there was 2 blue moons, and that was because the first full moon was January 1st. The second full moon was January 31st on an eclipse. And then after that, March 1st was a full moon and March 31st was a full moon. So that also happens occasionally, and to me, that is this moment when the solar time and lunar time, like, whoa, they synced up where there's a full moon on the first day of January 1st of the Gregorian calendar, and then 13 moons then sort of fit or fall within the solar cycle. So I want to leave you with that mystery of how often does that happen, that there's 2 blue moons? What is the repeating pattern around that? And for me, a personal mystery, and this comes from the self-study, and this is the work with The Moon is My Calendar, is to really help to facilitate the self-study, meaning studying oneself in one's own life, being both an observer and active participant, noticing the relationship between life events, between inner cycles of mood or physical cycles or creative cycles, then having that within the context and in relationship with natural cycles and the lunar cycle, as well as the solar cycle. But specifically, how can we each deepen our relationship with each moon and have that almost be like this reference point or this reminder for events in our life. So really, for me, in a personalized way, my work with the moon came into focus when my youngest child was born on a full blue moon, August 31st, 11 years ago. We're coming back around, and now this full blue moon is August 30th or 31st, depending on your time zone, 11 years later. And so this is part of my own personal mystery of, how is it that this chapter of life, these 11 years, have been dedicated to working with the moon, that my child sort of brought this work to me, through me, and birthing into the world. And that this moon is then falling again at the same time of year. Does that happen every 11 years? I haven't been able to find it, and I honestly haven't been tracking for long enough to see enough cycles to see if that repeats itself. And that may be a cycle that doesn't. That might just really be like a blue moon of blue moons. And as you know, they're not the color blue. Why are they called that? There's sort of some mythology around like why the term blue. Is it related to an Old English word that means like to betray? It's the 13th moon, and that number 13 that's kind of been demonized as like, and the moon sort of betraying the natural order of things being nice and tidy. Clearly there's bias in all of that. So working with the blue moon really is an invitation, or with the moon, sorry, I keep getting hair in my mouth. With the moon and lunar time is this invitation to, how do I harmonize these seeming like polarities or dualities that don't seem to go together, that could be very opposed, lunar time and solar time, and yet they weave together. And so working with this in a personalized way, especially practicing and tracking with lunar time, with cyclical time, with, even just seeing and visualizing time as a circle, that brings us into more harmony in relationship with ourselves, with time, with cycles, with even what seems like anything that seems like it wouldn't ever be able to get along. That blue moons really highlight that fact that even though there's this extra moon that comes in every 2.5 years, that there's a place for that. And with the Gregorian calendar and this grid, really what happened is like any reference to natural cycles are no longer a part of this calendar system. And it's not the only calendar system. The ancient ways of telling time always worked with the moon as a reference point. It gives meaning, it gives a sense of belonging to this existence on Earth, is to see this light of the moon open up and shine and grow, and then begin to contract and wane and disappear, almost like a death. It gives a kind of a reassurance and reminder that everything goes through cycles of life, death, and rebirth. I'll leave you with one resource if you want to check out and listen to a podcast episode that I recorded with Megan McGuire. She goes by Forest Whisperer on Instagram. And this is the Ancestral and Bioregional naming of the moons. This is episode 7 of the Between the Moon podcast, and I'll put that link there. If you're interested in this connection relationship that is very personal, how to really personalize working with the moon, and especially the naming of the moon. So I was going to leave you with that, but I'll give one more example of sort of how to understand the 12 moons and 13 moons. So if we look at time in the solar year as divided up into 4 quadrants of the winter solstice to spring equinox, into these 4 points of the wheel of the year, that each quadrant has 3 lunar cycles, or 3 full moons, or 3 new moons. Winter solstice to spring equinox, 3 moons. Spring equinox to summer solstice, 3 lunar cycles. summer solstice to fall equinox, 3 full moons or lunar cycles, and fall equinox to the winter solstice, 3 full moons, so 3, 6, 9, 12. However, when there's 13, the 13th moon that comes in every 2.5 years, about one of those seasons will have four full moons. And so some people said it was the third or the fourth that was called the blue moon. And so it was actually an error. I forget, I looked it up, in some publication in the 40s that said, instead of it being the 4th full moon in that quadrant of the seasons, that it was within the calendar month. And so even that is like a modern, not necessarily a misnomer, but a misunderstanding of solar time, lunar time, calendar months, when that extra full moon happens. But when you're paying attention, it seems less random, it seems less chaotic, it seems less like out of the blue, right? That expression of being out of the blue. And there's more of a rhythm. And when we have rhythm in our lives, there's more ease, there's more flow, there's more of a feeling of calm than the chaos of things being out of the blue. So with this blue moon, may you find that inner harmony, that inner peace, that sense of well-being, and that sense of being attuned to cycles, that there is a rhythm, whether it's solar time or lunar time, there's always a rhythm, and finding that rhythm to be in step with and in the flow of that rhythm. Thank you so much for being here and watching. If there's any questions or curiosities that have come up along the way, feel free to write a comment or message. I'm always curious, and I don't know everything. There's still so much mystery with the moon and the cycles that repeat that I love learning and sharing and just being in this exploration together. Okay, thank you.